First of all, I would like to thank all of you for being here. It's a great honor, especially in these weather conditions. So thank you for making it here today. I would like to thank very much the Dean for his kind words. I will not try to pronounce your name. And of course, the Honorable Consul General for her kind words as well. I would first like to thank the Fulbright Foundation for giving me the opportunity to be here and conduct its research project at the University of Chicago. And of course, the Harris School of Policy and the Cultural Policy Center for welcoming me here in this excellent academic milieu and for offering me all the support I needed for my research. And finally, I would like to thank the Greek-American community, everybody, every one of you who came here today, and other people who supported me and welcomed me with open hands among their families and lives. Thank you for reminding me what Greek hospitality truly is about. So, the current economic crisis currently affects our world, but it's more pronounced in the European Union, and particularly in the country of Greece. The European Union is a coalition of 27 member states. It was first founded in 1951 as the European Coal and Steel Community. The purpose was to give economic incentives to member states, to the big powers of Europe, so that they do not engage in another world war. In 1958, this community developed into the European Economic Community, and in 1993, with the Treaty of Maastricht, we have the European Union in its present form as an economic and political union of European member states. Greece is a member state of the European Union since 1981. The economic crisis has placed this country in the spotlight, but as we will present, the crisis actually threatens the whole European project, rendering the reconsideration of current policies and orientations imperative. A main objective of the European Union since the 1970s has been the integration of member states. But decision makers soon found out that merely by promoting economic motives or by trying to create a civic political dimension, this integration of member states would not happen. So they tried to put an emphasis on the cultural values uniting the peoples of Europe. They so tried to create a shared identity of Europeanness by emphasizing on the cultural dimension of the Union. This Europeanness would be explained and supported by the European Union's motto, unity and diversity. This means, on the first hand, that we are united by a common cultural past, ranging from ancient Greek to modernity, and on the other hand, we as Europeans would respect the cultural diversity of other member states. The main aim of this was not to create merely a common market, but a common community, a European community. Those common values are supposed to arise from a cultural, religious, and humanist inheritance of Europe, and those values are human dignity, freedom, equality, democracy, tolerance, pluralism, justice, etc. Those values were meant to balance, and I will stress this, the economic and cultural aspects of the community so that these aspects can complement and sustain each other. All of this you can find in official documents of the EU. However, after many years and efforts, policies, programs, and long-term efforts, the result remains. We still have an exclusivist European identity, which is mainly based on uncritical and hegemonic views of cultures and identities. And nowadays, policymakers have seen the need for cultural democracy policies that could actually promote interaction, syncretism, and hybridization. And all the more they stress the need to give voice to the disadvantaged groups, the discriminated, the dissenting, or politically undominated members. After all, in democratic societies, politics need to balance the political inequalities that also result from economic inequalities. However, today it is still questionable if the EU has outgrown its initial character as an economic partnership, because data from official sources, the Eurobarometer data, show that the impact of the crisis on the citizenry of the EU are rather disappointing. Support of EU membership is waning, levels of trust in EU institutions are regressing, and growing disparities among national economies deepen the divisions within the EU, creating the so-called two speeds Europe. So there is an overall pessimism among citizens regarding the future of the EU. And the final result, we see that actually positive perceptions of the EU may still depend on economic factors, but these economic incentives are not enough to develop feelings of solidarity and belonging to this supranational community. So, the economic crisis could be viewed as a crash test for the European project, and it accentuates mainly three questions. Firstly, which cultural elements are actually endorsed as the basis, the common values basis of the European Union? Does the EU consider culture as the arts, or in a wider anthropological sense as ways of life and different mentalities? Second question, we speak about tolerance of diversity, but which diversity are we referring to? Are we referring just to immigrant cultures, non-European cultures, minority cultures? Or do we also speak about the cultures of member states which are financially weaker and politically weaker? Member states which do not fit the cultural agenda of those powerful member states that define the EU cultural policy agenda. And the third question, it seems that cultural bias do not just concern Eurocentrism and class, but they're also intensified by economic disparities among member states. Indeed, the culture of financially frail partners becomes more easily exposed to marginalization and intolerance, compromising the European project. Culture, the very element meant to promote solidarity, became one of the first victims as the culture wars, mainly between Greece and Germany, demonstrated. You may be familiar with this statue. It's the Hellenistic statue of Venus of Milos. Milos is a Greek island, so it's called like this because it was found there. The German magazine Focus doctored this statue to represent Greeks as the fraudsters in the Euro family. Similarly, the selling off of beaches, islands, and even the Acropolis by the bankrupt Greeks recognized the economic value of Greece's environmental and cultural resources. But it failed to grasp the substantial symbolism the Acropolis has, both as an international symbol of democracy and as a carrier of historic memory, identity, and national pride for the Greeks. Greeks were mostly offended by what was regarded as libel, defamation, and denigration of national symbols. Legal and diplomatic consequences ensued, highlighting the issues of Greece's right to reparation claims for the Nazi occupation during World War II. Also, Germany's monetary profit from the EU, as well as from being Greece's main arms supplier, were stressed. The populist dispute between Greek and German media kindled discord among citizens. Images of Hitler flaunted what many view as Germany's reprehensible past, and the Berlin column in Victory column was also doctored to support opinions regarding Germany's new financial Nazism. As the situation developed, Greeks were lightly labeled as corrupt, irresponsible, and lazy, although such assertions are not supported by international official data. However, the cliché of the Southern European lazily relaxing under the Mediterranean sun has become something almost of a mental reflex when referring to the causes of the crisis in the Eurozone, disorienting public opinion. The crisis highlights the fragility of the financial and political systems, but the question remains, how willing and prepared is the EU to live up to its proclaimed principles of social solidarity and cultural integration? The administration of the crisis shows that economic factors still continue to take precedence over social and, of course, cultural ones. The prejudicial acronym PIGS typecast the European South and later Ireland on the basis of their economic frailty and mismanagement, disregarding the country's non-economic attributes, but also as well as our economic and cultural contribution to the EU. More than deepening existing divisions, the acronym brings back to memory shameful moments of Western history. I quote, "The usage of pigs is a modern version of the historical phenomenon of contesting the human nature of the fellow person, of the process by which members of a national group downgrade members of another, indirectly passing on the message that they deserve to receive a treatment worthy of animals. They forget that similar belittling expressions were systematically used in the past to desensitize public opinion, to suspend any misgivings, to numb empathy, and so facilitate persecution, massacre, or even genocide. Southerners aren't pigs, as Greeks are not crooks by nature, or Germans susceptible to genocide." Still, the dissemination of at times misinformed perceptions and stereotypes regarding Greece and its citizenry was made possible, firstly, because grounds for criticism exist. Secondly, because Greece has not invested in the efficient, long-term creation of a solid, positive national and international image, as we will see now. Greece has significant potential for soft power. In a nutshell, soft power comes at the antipode of hard power. Hard power, as you might know, according to Joseph Nye, is the armed, armies and war power. But soft power is the strength of a country to persuade other countries towards its own goals, because it has an attractive culture, cultural resources and values, but also because the country can support those values by national policies and foreign policies and political principles. So you need three requirements. Greece does have world-acclaimed cultural assets, many of which comprise EU's foundation, but what we lack are the appropriate political principles and policies to support those values, whereas foreign cultural policy, cultural diplomacy, or public diplomacy are still largely unexploited. It's largely an uncharted terrain. To this day, regarding state bodies, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs plays a leading role in cultural diplomacy, supported by other ministries, for example, education, culture, or tourism. However, there are often difficulties in coordination, which is challenging. Funding shortages also is a great problem, and there is a difficulty to design consistent and visionary strategies, hindering Greece's methodical representation and promotion in the national field and the international field. Moreover, despite the country's rich cultural diversity, we see that mainly three cultural assets are promoted. Assets that resonate more readily to international audiences, for example, classic antiquity. Assets that promote long-standing national aims, the return of the Parthenon marbles. And assets that support other governmental objectives, for example, promotion of religious heritage, so as to attract the orthodox tourism markets. Having said that, Greece strives towards increased extroversion through specific policies. It participates in international organizations, fora, initiatives, and establishes multilateral collaborations, promoting scientific and cultural exchanges. Moreover, Greece also promotes the Greek culture and language abroad by subsidizing chairs, institutes, and departments of Greek studies abroad, often in cooperation with the Greek diaspora. It also operates two institutions, the Hellenic Foundation for Culture, which is something like the British Council, and the European Cultural Centre of Delphi. But still, funding shortages and the lack of visionary strategies hinder the role that these organizations would actually play. Subsidized by the state, arts organizations also try to have an international presence, but they also meet challenges. And, of course, they also do not have specifically articulated diplomatic strategies, despite the organization's potential to facilitate intercultural understanding. Contrary to Greece's acclaimed cultural heritage, the country's cultural industries have a smaller international impact, mostly due to the language, which is not widely spoken, but also because of financial shortages and weaker distribution channels. Still, Greece's environmental and cultural resources are represented, although sometimes through skewed angles, in international filmography, increasing Greece's identifiability. Nevertheless, Greece cannot depend on external perceptions, but must actively define messages that can solidify an actual and attractive international image. Perhaps Greece's most systematic international promotion occurs via the tourism industry, which is a vital pillar of the Greek economy. The Greek National Tourism Organization is a state-controlled body that actually has a large budget for international advertising campaigns on tourism. The problem is that this organization, through the advertising, mainly promotes four elements of what is Greece: sea, sun, antiquities, and fun. So it's kind of stuck in a mass tourism model of the 70s, and the country's significant, diverse cultural assets, modern developments, scientific developments, or modern way of life are rarely represented. And because tourism advertisements gain higher visibility, these narrow images help shape limited, one-sided perceptions of Greece, facilitating negative stereotyping. Indeed, Greece has not invested in managing perceptions and building a strong positive impressions abroad. This is increasingly realized that it's actually a joint project that should involve public-private partnerships, the diaspora, civilians, other groups, and media and distributors. The role of grassroots agents then becomes very important, especially so as the civil society is a large source of soft power that can also lobby for national and international issues. In Greece, we have the opportunity to welcome many tourists every year. So this is a good opportunity to promote a cultural diplomacy among peoples. Of course, this depends on the quality of stay of the tourist in Greece, because this can, if they have a great time, we will have good perceptions of Greece, and if they have a lousy time, then we will have negative perceptions. Perceptions of Greece are also shaped by the country's unofficial ambassadors abroad, which is a large Greek diaspora. The diaspora numbers around 4 million people, many of which are in the States, of course, and in Australia, and they do retain their links to their homelands and try to lobby for issues that concern Greece, like the Cyprus issue, the Fyrom issue, and most recently, Greece's economic struggle. However, the Greek state does attempt to strengthen these loyalty bonds, but does not have consistent strategies to do that. Athens merely depends on emotional Greekness and fails to realize the actual needs and developments in these communities. These people have come in their adoptive homelands, they have made a good life for themselves, they have become respected members of the new homes, of the new communities they have gotten into, and they do retain their links to Greece, but actually they also are citizens of a different country, and this should be taken into account. New waves of Greek immigration are boosted every day by steep unemployment rates and poverty, continuing the brain drain of Greece. Many young, highly educated individuals leave the country, seeking a better future in other countries, and this gives them the opportunity to come into contact with other peoples, proving that Hellenism is not bankrupt culturally. Information technologies enable grassroots agents to organize themselves and to disseminate globally independent sources of information. The social media's efficiency in mobilizing protests earned them the characterization of paramedia, and the protester was proclaimed Person of the Year by the 2011 Time magazine. Solidarity movements and demonstrations, also in favor of Greece, reflect citizen skepticism to media populism and the anti-social effects of the crisis. This time, elements of Greek culture were used as symbols of camaraderie and defiance against the crisis' domino effects. The French I Am Greek movement echoed in its declaration of Nantes Greek classical and French revolutionary ideals acknowledged as diachronic foundations of Western democracy. Movement members requested Greek nationality in fraternity so as to be counted at heart Greek, with a view to the establishment of universal democracy in liberty and equality 25 centuries after the time of Solon, Clisthenes, and Pericles. You could see with the red the French revolutionary ideals, and in blue the Greek influence of Greek classics. This merging of cultural ideals perhaps demonstrates more clearly than EU policies the actual dynamic of intercultural convergence when it is based on common principles guiding social life. Sirtaki dancing, you can see it in the corner, right corner, at the Zorba music in central sites, such as La Défense in Paris, ironically turned the misunderstood cultural cliché and the media-abused Greek life-affirming mentality to a cultural expression linking individuals to a common goal, namely the protection of social rights against domineering markets. A more recent initiative by the Association of Professors of Greek and Latin in Murcia, Spain, mobilized their students to acknowledge in a 7-minute video the rich cultural inheritance the Western world owes to Greece in an effort to defend the continuation of ancient Greek studies in the curriculum against government cuts. In a matter of days, this video reached thousands of viewers. And I think we do have some time to see a little bit of it. I don't think we need subtitles.
Grecia sigue viva.
Grecia está presente en muchos aspectos de nuestra vida cotidiana.
Sin que lo sepas, hablas más griego de lo que piensas.
Por el alfabeto, ta grammata. Por las matemáticas, mathematica. Por la historia, historia. Por las Termópilas, por Esparta.
Gracias por la ética.
Por Platón. Gracias por la isegoría.
Gracias por la lógica.
Por Sócrates.
Gracias por la dialéctica.
Gracias por la filosofía.
Gracias por la biblioteca.
Gracias por las fotocopias.
Gracias por la música, arte de las musas. Gracias por la armonía.
Gracias también, por ejemplo, por el pentagrama, el tono, el semitono.
Por el triatlón.
Por el decatlón.
Por la maratón. Por las Olimpiadas.
Por la gimnasia.
Por el atletismo.
Por la política.
Por la democracia.
Los padres de la medicina, Hipócrates en Grecia y Galeno en el Imperio Romano, nos han dejado un legado de más de 75.000 vocablos. Un médico a lo largo de su carrera utiliza unos 25.000. Ejemplo de ello tenemos
Anatomía, bronquitis, broncoscopia,
Leucemia,
traqueostomía, patología,
Faringitis,
artrosis,
rinoplastia,
radiografía
pronóstico
y sinusitis.
Gracias Grecia por este legado.
Gracias por la gastronomía.
Gracias por el aceite de oliva.
Y gracias por los cereales.
Gracias por el vino.
¡Por Dionisos!
Gracias, Grecia.
Gracias por tus mitos.
Gracias por los megas. Gracias por la tecnología.
Gracias por Arquímedes,
Por Pitágoras. Por Tales de Mileto.
Por la física. Por el átomo.
Por la biología.
Por la arqueología.
por el Partenón, por la geografía,
Por la mecánica.
Por el arte. Por los capiteles.
Por los anfibios.
por Fidias y por el Dórico,
Por la ecología.
Por la poesía. Por la épica.
por la lírica,
Por Homero.
Por la metáfora.
Por la hipérbole. Por el hipérbato. Por la astronomía. Por la galaxia. Por la arquitectura.
¡Por Troya!
por Esparta.
Por el teatro.
¡La comedia! ¡Amor, que sobre las fieras te precipitas!
Por una tragedia. Gracias.
¡Evjaristó!
Gracias. Evjaristó. Gracias. Evjaristó.
Gracias.
¡Evjaristó!
Gracias.
¡Evjaristó!
Gracias.
¡Evjaristó!
Gracias.
Evjaristó. Evjaristó.
Gracias.
Ejaristó.
Gracias.
Ejaristó.
Gracias.
Ejaristó.
Vale.
Finally, many grassroots initiatives spring up, created by businessmen, student and citizen groups in Greece and abroad, in which the diaspora plays a prominent role. All these initiatives have something in common. They try to promote their own version of what Greece today is and what being Greek actually means, not avoiding official state or top-down channels. So concluding, we can see that the economic crisis and its political management display the precedence of economic values over cultural and social ones and question the long-term sustainability of the European project. Political confrontations have spilled over to the population, stressing people's cultural differences instead of their commonalities, hindering integration. Divisions are deepening, and the EU self-sabotages its vision to extend its foundation from economic incentives to the cultural grounds of unity in diversity. In this sense, the crisis represents an historic chance for the EU to consider its present course and also what direction it will take in the future, and seek more stable foundations in order to cultivate the sense of belonging among the citizenry. Grassroots mobilization against the antisocial effect of the crisis, against the market-driven globalization, calls upon the EU to offer a humanitarian vision as an alternative to the rigid balancing of financial indicators, a meaningful way of life that defends the founding principles of the EU, namely the values of dignity, freedom, democracy, tolerance, equality. To this end, the opening of a sincere dialogue on existing and aspired values among member states is imperative. In this collective effort, Greece should participate actively, proposing ideals drawn from its enduring intellectual and cultural heritage. Greece's strength does not lie in economics. It lies in the widely acknowledged cultural elements which represent the foundation of modern Western societies. They are summarized in the efficient organization of human thought and the constitution of unique models of collective coexistence, emphasizing on transcendental, immaterial principles that can temper the modern predominance on consumerism, materialism, and utilitarianism. The point is not just to live, but to live well, not to zin, αλλά to efzin. However, Greece's proposal needs to be supported by appropriate state policies, as well as by the everyday example of everybody in every tier of society. Consequently, similarly to the EU, the present standards and future course of Hellenism need to be openly addressed and discussed, seeking self-awareness. In this effort, pluralist, ambiguous, and even antithetical elements can become, instead of a handicap, a strength. Historically, Hellenism has managed to bring together, to fuse together creatively different elements to produce new forms. This strength can be used to support the European motto of unity in diversity. Our era is characterized by intense cultural, financial, and political struggles. Constant self-questioning and efforts to harmonize cultural and social differences are now needed more than ever. After all, this is the only way to protect and sustain peace. Thank you.